This is the Nike Hypervenom Phantom from 2013, and it's probably one of the most loved Nike boots of the last 15 years. The reason for that is simple, because it quite frankly was, and to be honest, still is, an insanely good football boot. And finally, now it seems Nike wanted to bring it back. Sort of. So what they did was to take that iconic look of the OG launch colorway of the Hypervenom Phantom and slap it on the Nike Phantom Vision 2. And yes, that is admittedly a whole lot of Phantom, which I'm cool with, but it's just not the kind of Phantom that I wanted the most. Because this is. But I guess I'll stop being bummed about not getting an actual one-to-one remake of the OG Hypervenom Phantom and save it for later, I guess. Although, I guess everyone would lose their collective minds if they dropped a remake of this bad boy. But when you take a step back, there is actually some sort of reasoning to the madness from Nike in releasing a Phantom Vision 2, make it look a whole lot like a Hypervenom Phantom, although it is clearly not. See, because Nike have this concept that they call future DNA, where they want to enable the future stars of today to experience these very groundbreaking, milestone, iconic Nike boots that really shaped the future back then. And to give people the chance to kind of wear boots, give them the DNA and the spirit of those boots if they didn't have the chance to wear them, such as the Hypervenom Phantom when it was out back in 2013. And I kind of like the idea that the future stars of 2020 get to wear boots that look like the ones that the future stars back then used to wear in becoming world beaters. Although, I guess in this instance, it would have been better if they simply just gave us the actual boot from back then, but the Vision 2 is still a solid football boot, so it is what it is. But let me get back on track here, because if you don't know why the Hypervenom Phantom 1 was so revered and loved by more or less everyone who wore it back then, to give you a bit of backstory, it did so well because it did so many things right because it was just an extremely simple boot. It had this upper that was very thin and ultra soft that Nike called Nike Skin. It's something you've heard before on uppers today. I'll explain what that is in a bit. But what this was is basically a 3-layer upper consisting of a very thin one-piece mesh. Then you had a little bit of foam in this honeycomb-like structure to give it the texture you see all over the upper. And then the whole thing was covered by this very thin silicone film. And that silicone film is what you know as Nike Skin today. But this whole upper package also meant that because it was so thin, you got an extremely barefoot-like and very sharp touch on the ball. But because of that honeycomb-like foam, it also took away some of that stinging, flaring pain you got when you're playing a boot that is very thin and so barefoot-like. And because the upper here was softer than melted butter soft, and because Nike made a toe box that was relatively wide but also extremely pointy and low thanks to the newly developed X1.1 last, and of course also because they developed this really short and off-center lacing system, you got this very clean but also close, razor sharp and slightly elegant feeling on the ball that reminded me of what a better enhanced sensation of playing barefooted would be like. And the good thing about the Hypervenom is that it felt ridiculously comfortable out of the box, but it also gave you that fast, nimble feeling that people really loved from the Vapor. And on top of just looking ridiculously cool, in my opinion, one of the coolest, most dangerous looking Nike boots they've ever made, the Hypervenom Phantom 1 was simply a brilliant example of when it becomes more than just the sum of its parts. Iconic. Legendary. I still love it. However, there isn't much left of the Hypervenom Phantom in the Phantom Vision 2. But one thing that really struck me was that I was a little bit surprised and actually perplexed about why Nike chose the Phantom Vision 2 instead of the Phantom Venom, which kind of took over from the Hypervenom Phantom line. But then, when you sit back and think about it, it actually kind of makes sense, because both boots have these textured uppers to give you a little bit of grip on the ball. Both boots have these very soft and thin uppers with a minimum amount of layers. Both boots have focused on really clean, uninterrupted striking surface with the off-center lacing on the Hypervenom Phantom and the ghost laces on the Phantom Vision. You have the dynamic support cage on the inside of the Hypervenom Phantom that kind of exists in the shape of the quad fit mesh in Vision 2 to give you lockdown. And finally then you have this focus on toe-off agility, albeit in a slightly different execution. So when you reflect about it, is the Phantom Vision 2 the reincarnation of the Hypervenom Phantom in 2020? Look, I really want to say yes and sell you the dream, but fact of the matter is that no, it's not the Hypervenom Phantom reincarnated, because when you look at it, the most Hypervenom Phantom thing about the Vision 2 is it's the looks. And despite all the similarities that I talked about, they only really work in theory. So when you wear the boots, they don't really feel similar at all, because the OG Hypervenom Phantom is simply lighter, it's more nimble on the ball, it has a lower toe box, and it simply just feels more razor sharp to the touch. Whereas the Vision 2s here, they've got way better lockdown. They have more grip on the ball, and also there's just more boot. They have more oomph to it. And while I gotta commend Nike for what they did in terms of detailing and making the Vision 2 really look like a pair of Hypervenom Phantoms, especially from afar, where on feed they look absolutely killer. When you get them in hand, I can't shake the feeling that they look a little too flat, like those cheap takedown versions called the Hypervenom Felon, because of the lack of the honeycomb-like texture, the flatter synthetic plastic look of the upper, and frankly also because of the sock. Could be better, but I guess this is a masterpiece that's really hard to recreate. You don't paint the Mona Lisa on a can of Coke either, do you? In other words, I am reasonably happy with this release, mainly because it's just so good to have that design back on the football pitch in 2020. But also, I gotta be honest, I don't have the same giggly butterflies in my stomach sensation as I would have if they actually gave us a proper one-to-one remake of this bad boy, because I would absolutely lose my... Yeah, you get the deal. With that said though, I like the whole concept of sharing classic designs on new tech with the future generations. So as long as these don't roll out an actual remake of this, we're good. If they do, I'm gonna get angry. So make the remake happen, Nike, and we're all cool. But guys, what do you think about this Hypervenom Phantom Vision 2 mock-up? Well, you should let me know in the comment section right down below. And then make sure that you've subscribed to the channel with the notifications on to be among the first to find out what's in the rest of the boxes starting next week. With that said, I've been Jay, I'm signing off. Cheerio.